pretty firm believer in the value of standards. So I always look to see what I can find from standards. And ISO 9000 has a definition of system as a set of interrelated or interacting elements. And that's, you know, a bunch of multi-syllable words, but it's so broad and vague. What possible insight can I gain from that definition? You know, and you know, my theory of definitions is that they should be pragmatic and useful and not conflict with the kind of the natural language meaning of the words, which we often fail as standards writers. But so look at this, a set of interrelated or interacting elements. What can we possibly do with that? So here's a medical device. Let's say you're designing this medical device, and it's a system, right? Well, yeah, but it's also a part of a system. So from a regulatory perspective, my colleagues at FDA, you know, are going to help you decide, is this product a device under the law? And actually, not too long ago, I had a debate with an FDA lawyer. He was looking for a definition of a medical device, and I showed him the definition in the law. The device is blah, 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 and he said, but that's a definition of a device. I'm looking for the definition of a medical device. So we explored that and eventually came to a consensus that he could use that definition even though it didn't say it was a medical device. But you know, these are the issues that come up. So then, you know, after you decide that your product is a device, you know, then you need to show that it's reasonably safe and effective in clinical use. So that's kind of the regulatory and legal perspective, which I don't get involved with so much, but I do get involved with, there are some issues that are engineering issues as well. So has my design assured that to the extent foreseeable and practicable, the risks are mitigated to an acceptable level, whatever that means, and that the product will consistently perform as intended. And the key here is meeting intended uses and defining what you mean by that. So, you know, that's kind of, the key thing here is that FDA regulates products, things that people sell that have a medical purpose and are introduced into interstate commerce. But the thing that you sell may only be a piece of the system in which it's used, so that you can only understand the safety and effectiveness of the product that you sell, which is what we regulate, by considering how it interacts with the system implied by its intended use. And I don't think that's written into any law or regulation. To me, that's just common sense. Or maybe it's my systems engineering training. Okay, so let's look at this device and look at the system which is implied by its intended use. So there are people involved. The patient, perhaps a clinician, other users. If this device is used in the home, you know, grandma gets sent home with an infusion pump, and little 5-year-old Johnny sees mom and dad pushing the buttons and helping grandma with her device, and little Johnny really wants to be helpful, so the first opportunity he gets, he's going to be pushing those buttons too. And that's something that you have to think about. Little Johnny is part of the system. Most devices interact with infrastructure. They obtain, you know, gases from the clinical environment, electricity from the wall or from a battery, various other connections, FDA doesn't regulate the power supply in the hospital. They don't regulate the distribution of gases. Who does regulate that stuff? Well, it's the authority having jurisdiction. It's the building code inspector in the county or township or city where the hospital is. So, you know, FDA doesn't regulate that stuff, but as a medical device manufacturer, you have to understand the variability of the power that comes out of the wall, and the characteristics of the gases that are delivered and used by your device, the vacuum and, you know, pressurized air and so forth. And you have to ensure that your device will operate under the expected conditions of use. These days, more and more devices have connectors or wireless connections that exchange data with other devices. And what are the implications of the safety of that for you. Let's look at that. So every intended use of a product has a context. Elements within that context of use that interact with the product constitute a system. And that's starting to sound a whole lot like that definition that I showed you in the first slide, right? System is just a set of interacting or interrelated elements. So, you know, it's this de facto system that's defined by your intended use that's the system that you have to think about the safety of.